Hi, Black Cat Recapped here. Today I am going to explain my favorite horror movie named House of Wax. The movie starts in 1974, showing a family of a person who makes wax sculptures having a regular breakfast. Soon after, the father comes into the room holding their second child, who is trying very hard to get away from his hold. The parents go on to forcefully tie the child to a chair. Then we jump to the current time, where a group of young adults is getting ready for a road trip to watch a sports game. There's Carly, who is spirited and bold, Paige, the friend who likes to be intimate with others, Wade, the caring boyfriend, Nick, who is Carly's rebellious twin, Blake, the friend who is black and is dating Paige, and Dalton, who is not very trustworthy and enjoys filming his friends. The friends all get into two different cars and start their journey. After a few hours, Paige suggests that they stop somewhere and rest for the night. They choose a quiet place in the middle of the woods to set up their camp. Before long, a strong wind blows towards them, and the group starts to notice a bad smell coming from the woods. They choose to ignore it for the moment and continue to enjoy themselves around the bonfire. But then something happens. A truck arrives and interrupts their celebration. The group asks the driver to get out of the car, but the driver doesn't respond. Even when Nick throws the bottle, the driver still doesn't want to come out. And then, after a little while, the truck drives off. Later that night, while the group is sleeping, someone they can't see takes Dalton's camera and starts filming them. The quiet sounds wake up Carly, who immediately goes to check it out. However, she doesn't find anything. The next morning, Dalton can't find his camera. The group doesn't pay much attention to him and starts preparing to continue their trip. That's when they notice that Wade's car won't start because someone messed with its fan belt. While the boys stay at the camp, Carly and Paige are in the woods. The wind blows again, and they smell something really bad. Curious, Carly decides to check it out. It turns out the bad smell is coming from a hole filled with dead animals from the road. What's even worse, Carly sees a hand sticking out from it. She screams because she's scared, and the boys quickly run into the woods to assist her. After Carly manages to get to a safe place, a truck shows up and stops in front of them. The driver starts throwing more dead animals into the hole without any care, until Wade confronts him about the hand sticking out. Then, the driver walks closer to the hole. Wade asks the guy where the closest gas station is so he can get a new fan belt. The guy offers to take Wade there, and Carly, who is Wade's girlfriend, wants to go with them. But the rest of the group doesn't want to miss the game, so they decide to leave the two with the suspicious guy. The group separates, and we follow Carly and Wade as they are driven to a nearby town called Ambrose. However, at some point, Wade and Carly start feeling uneasy. The strange guy says they only need to go a bit more in the car, but Carly and Wade, who are already creeped out by him, insist on walking from that point onward. While all of this is happening, the rest of the group gets stuck in a lot of cars on the road and realizes they won't reach the game on time. So, they choose to go back. As for Wade and Carly, they are walking on the main road of the strangely quiet town called Ambrose. At one point, Carly receives a call from Paige, who tells her that the rest of the group is going back to the campsite. The couple reaches the gas station but doesn't find anyone there, so they decide to keep walking. Eventually, they stumble upon the town's church. When they open the doors, they see a funeral service taking place. Shortly after, a man comes out of the church, and we learn that he happens to be the owner of the town's gas station. His name is Bo, and he asks Wade and Carly to wait at the gas station while he finishes up at the church because they are having a funeral for someone important to him. To pass the time, the couple decides to visit the town's House of Wax. They go inside even though there's a sign saying it's closed. They start exploring and are amazed to see that everything around them, even the walls, is made of wax. However, Carly starts getting scared, but Wade doesn't take her fears seriously and tells her there's nothing to worry about. While Wade goes outside to search for the figure, Carly decides to check out the other rooms. Because Carly is very scared, they decide to go directly to the gas station. Meanwhile, the rest of the group arrives back at the camp. Blake, who wants to spend some time alone with his girlfriend, asks Nick and Dalton to take the car and go pick up Carly and Wade. Going back to Carly and Wade, they reach the gas station. Unfortunately, Wade can't find the specific thing he needs. Right on time, Bo comes in and tells them that he has the exact fan belt in his house. Wade and Carly are left with no other option but to accompany Bo to his house and get the fan belt. On the way, Bo decides to share a story about the town's house of wax, which used to be a family business. The main artist was Trudy, and her son Vincent became an artist too, just like her. Trudy's husband, Doc Sinclair, used to work as a doctor in a big city. However, he lost his license for doing something illegal, so the whole family moved to a small town to start over and opened a wax museum. Sadly, Trudy passed away from brain cancer, and her husband couldn't handle the loss, so he chose to end his own life. Additionally, they had 2 sons who ended up in foster homes. When they reach their destination, Wade asks if he can use the bathroom, while Carly chooses to stay in Bo's truck since he offered to drive them back. After using the bathroom, Wade decides to check out a peculiar room in the house. The room is filled with odd objects, including a medical license belonging to someone named Victor Sinclair. Meanwhile, outside, Carly chooses to get out of the truck. As she glances around, she notices something important. One of the truck's headlights is smashed, which means it's the same truck they saw the previous night. Realizing they're in danger, she quickly hurries to honk the truck's horn. Suddenly, the lights in the house turn off, and the door closes behind Wade. Just then, a mysterious person shows up and cuts Wade's heel with a pair of scissors. They then hold him down and make him unconscious. Carly, who is extremely worried outside, attempts to call Paige for assistance, but Paige doesn't answer her call. Carly quickly runs into the truck and locks the doors, which makes Bo upset. Understanding that his secret is out, Bo forcefully breaks into the truck and tries to drag her out. Fortunately, Carly manages to defend herself by moving the gear stick, which helps her resist his attempts. Carly attempts to drive away but realizes the truck is stuck. To make matters worse, she sees Bo standing in front of the truck, blocking her path. Determined to escape, Carly manages to flee through the back of the truck and starts running for her life. Meanwhile, Wade, who is barely conscious, gets taken and placed on a table by the wax sculptor named Vincent Sinclair. Vincent injects him with a drug that paralyzes him, then proceeds to stitch him up and prepare him to be a part of his artwork. Carly eventually reaches the main street, and suddenly all the lights come on as if they were programmed that way. Desperate for assistance, she chooses to enter the church, hoping to find help inside. However, she discovers that everyone inside the church is completely still, not moving at all. To make matters worse, she realizes that all the sounds she hears in the church are actually coming from a single audio player placed in the room. Carly decides to investigate the prayer booklet and discovers that the lifeless body inside the church is actually Trudy Sinclair, who happens to be Vincent Sinclair's mother. Hearing footsteps approaching, Carly quickly hides. Bo enters the room shortly after and addresses the deceased body in the coffin as his mother. He starts searching for Carly and almost leaves, but something unexpected happens. Carly manages to break free from his grip and escapes back outside. Unfortunately, Bo catches up to her and pins her down. She desperately calls for help, but no one comes to her rescue. There is still a chance for help as Nick and Dalton finally show up. They get out of their car because it couldn't go any further on the rough path. Bo takes Carly to the basement of the gas station and ties her to a chair. Carly notices a red scar on Bo's wrist, indicating that he was the child who was tied to the chair at the start of the movie. However, Bo's actions are interrupted when Nick and Dalton knock on the door upstairs. Bo puts a knife to Carly's throat and warns her not to say a word. Nick and Dalton make a plan to separate and search for Wade and Carly. At the same time, Bo decides to use super glue to seal Carly's lips, preventing her from screaming for assistance. Once Bo leaves, Carly attempts to find a way to free herself. Just below them, Carly overhears her brother's voice and starts trying to shout for help, while Bo pretends to be unaware of anything happening. Carly manages to free herself from the chair and attempts to get her brother's attention by sticking her finger through a small opening in the ground. Unfortunately, Bo takes extreme measures to silence her by cutting off her finger. Bo then offers to assist Nick in searching for their friends, while Carly struggles to remove the super glue from her lips. Nick swiftly enters the gas station and prevents Bo from entering, then rushes downstairs to save his twin sister. In another part of town, Dalton enters the wax museum and discovers Wade sitting near the piano. Dalton attempts to remove the wax covering Wade, but mistakenly ends up tearing his skin instead. Despite Wade's obvious distress and tears, Dalton, who seems to lack common sense, continues to peel off his skin. Suddenly, Vincent sneaks up from behind and begins pursuing Dalton. Vincent successfully traps him, ultimately killing him by cutting off his head. Returning to Nick and Carly, they discover that Bo has finally departed and quickly make their way upstairs. Nick attempts to contact the police using the landline, but they soon realize that in this type of movie, the phones never work. But then Carly remembers something important. When Bo captured her, she saw an old woman who briefly opened her curtain before closing it again. The siblings come up with a plan to go to the old woman's house. However, upon arriving, they discover that the old woman has also been transformed into a wax figure. Meanwhile, back at the campsite, Paige is attempting to sleep when something horrifying occurs. Paige collapses to the ground and witnesses Blake dying with a knife lodged in his throat. Paige quickly flees into the nearby woods. Desperate for safety, she stumbles upon an unfamiliar building and takes shelter inside. To her surprise, the lights inside the building unexpectedly switch on, prompting Paige to arm herself with a sturdy metal bar, ready to defend herself. Sadly, Vincent becomes aware of her location, causing Paige to seek refuge inside a nearby car. Seizing the element of surprise, she attempts to make another daring escape, but fate does not favor her this time. Meanwhile, in the town, Nick resolves to break the glass of a hunting store in order to arm himself. However, an unexpected obstacle arises. They sneak into the movie theater and pretend to be regular audience members while Bo tries to find them. Bo gets shot but continues to chase after them. This time, the protagonists gain the advantage and have the upper hand. They realize that the shotgun is out of bullets, so they decide to go back to Bo's house where Carly last saw Wade. They enter the house and start searching. Carly discovers a drawer filled with newspaper articles about a surgeon who performed a controversial surgery on conjoined twins, presumably Vincent and Bo. Surprisingly, Bo is still alive and starts pulling out the arrows stuck in his body. Vincent arrives shortly after, and we notice that his face, which is deformed, is covered in wax. It turns out that Bo, who is manipulative and mean, has been persuading Vincent to transform the townspeople into wax figures to keep their family's legacy alive in some way. Meanwhile, Carly and Nick successfully sneak past Bo and Vincent and find their way into the basement. Little did they know, the switches in the basement control the lights in different areas of the town. Bo and Vincent become aware of this upstairs. The twins explore the tunnels and come across Vincent's workspace, where they discover Dalton. However, they don't have much time to process their sadness as Vincent appears. The twins attempt to defend themselves, inadvertently triggering the activation of the massive wax melting furnaces. Nick empties a pot of wax to deter Vincent from pursuing them, and the twins head upstairs to the wax museum. There, they encounter Bo once again. Surprisingly, Bo remains incredibly strong despite being shot with arrows just a short while ago. Carly steps in and confronts Bo, ultimately defeating him with a baseball bat. Vincent arrives on the scene, enraged to discover his brother's lifeless body. He sets his sights on Carly as the wax museum starts melting due to the fire in the basement. Vincent approaches Carly, but Nick intervenes, tackling Vincent onto a bed. Vincent gains the upper hand and restrains Nick, until Carly retrieves the knife lodged in her brother's thigh. With the knife in hand, Carly stabs Vincent, ending the threat. Using their last bit of energy, the twins break through the wall and escape from the melting building. In the following scene, The previously silent town is now filled with police officers and emergency medical personnel. Nick and Carly find solace inside an ambulance when the sheriff comes up to them. The police officer tells them that the town has been empty for the past decade, but the brothers have been abducting people from the highway and turning them into wax figures. As the twins are leaving the town, the sheriff receives news that the Sinclair family actually had 3 sons, not 2,